Hi, guys, and welcome back to Level Up with Lou, with your girl Lou Oni. And this is the podcast where we help you live your best life, pursue your dreams, and love yourself. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode. I have got an amazing guest on today. Guys, when I say amazing, I don't just mean amazing, I mean awesome. I mean fantastic. She is so talented. She's honestly like someone that I actually really look up to. And I've been following her content for some time. So I'm really, really happy to have her on this episode. Her name is Shanu. Kat is a femininity expert and a coach. And she's also an ambitious go-getter and a lover of luxury. She is the CEO and the founder of the Fem Guide, a community of feminine and ambitious women who know their worth, like myself and herself. The Fem Guide's mission is to help redefine what femininity is for the modern day woman through providing support from online courses, one-to-one coaching, and transformative steps. She is passionate about showing women how she went from an ugly duckling, not my words, but it's actually something that she said herself, but with an emphasis on the fact that to become a whole person, you have to enhance the attributes you have. So thank you so much for coming on this episode, Kat. How are you today?
Babe, I am so excited. Do you know how big my face is smiling right now? I'm so happy to be here. That was an amazing introduction. My cheeks are literally going to start hurting because I can't stop smiling. I'm so happy I'm here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me on. I cannot wait for us to dive into things.
You're welcome. So before we get started, can you share with the audience your journey with personal development and what actually inspired you to create the Fem Guide?
Oh my gosh, my journey with personal development started a very young age. So growing up for me, I was very shy and very insecure. If you imagine, because I know a lot of us watched Gossip Girl and we watched Ugly Betty. So it was the lack of social skills of Ugly Betty plus the outsider feeling of Dan Humphrey. Like that was me in a nutshell. And I just used to just have so much anxiety about making friends. And the one thing I had going for me was definitely like my intelligence. I got amazing grades, but that was literally it. Like I was that kid at the end of class on Friday evening when the teacher's like, kids, you can go home. I was like, but miss, what about our math homework? And everyone would be like, oh my God, this girl. So for me, I was just like clueless when it came to like being an all-rounder. And then one day I was 16. And so my parents told me they were moving me to London against my will. I lived in a little village in Ireland at the time. And I remember just being on the ferry. Yeah, it was just like, I was just like, what? I don't know anyone in this country. Then I was like, wait, I don't know anyone in this country, which means that no one knows that I'm unpopular. Like no one knows that I'm shy. If I just decided today that I'm confident, and I'm cool and people want to be my friends, everyone would just have to believe me. And so I had this like renewed sense of like, I get to choose the life that I want to live. So what happened was I had this new mentality. We arrive in London, then people tried to talk to me. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, but I don't have the skills for the conversation. So what I started doing is I would go to the library every day and I discovered this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I was a 16-year-old girl in the library every single day reading these personal development books. And the biggest thing for me was I put them into action. And gradually over time, things really, really began to change for me. And so what inspired me to start the Fem Guide was I got to a place where I had an amazing job while in my first year of uni. I was working in advertisement. And it was the kind of job that my professors would want us to get now that we've graduated. So my confidence was really high, but I just didn't know how high. And one day I was coming back from like this luxury vacation with the boyfriend I had at the time. So I was living a life, girl. And I get a call from my office manager, and they're like, you need to speak to the managing director. And here's me thinking, oh my God, I've lost my job. Someone messed up the social media while I was away. Like, my head was just going in a million different places. And I was like, no, just tell me. And he was like, no, you have to speak to the managing director. So I spoke to the managing director, and she said to me, you know, we have this award show. It's 1.2 thousand executives, the creme de la creme of the advertising industry, and the celebrity that we meant to have open the show has dropped out. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. I can edit the social media, easy thing, you know? And then she was like, well, what we're wondering is, will you open up the award show? And I was like, whoa. And immediately I said yes, with no hesitation. I don't know if something took over my mind, but I was just like, sure, you know. But by the way, keep in mind that my luggage was left in Switzerland because I missed a connecting flight. So I had no makeup, no clothes, all of that. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to open up an award show, sure. But what ended up happening was I performed at the award show. And when I was up on stage in front of like over 1,000 of like the people who I aspire to be like, I just felt at home. Like, I was really thriving on there. And when I got off of stage, here's the thing that surprised me. I wasn't expecting this. Is that all these executives and award winners were coming up to me, and they were like, wow, you were amazing. And the number one thing they kept saying was, were you not nervous? And I felt like for society-wise, I should have been like, oh, yes, darling, I was trembling. But inside, I was like, I want to do this to get tomorrow. And that's when it clicked for me. That's when I realized, oh, like, we've come a long way. Like, my confidence has changed a lot. And that was what inspired me to start the Fem Guide, because I wanted to give back and share all the things, all the lessons that I had learned, but in a way that could relate to someone like you and me, in a way that it wasn't targeted at, you know, someone who already has privilege or whatever. But I wanted to speak to young women, right? Women who have big goals in life, but maybe their culture or their society told them it's not for them, to women who feel like an outsider, to women who feel like they have potential that's unfulfilled. But the problem was, when I started, a lot of the advice I saw was just focused on personal development. And there's a side of me that was very big, and that was my passion for life, my love for luxury, and my interest in femininity and being a girly girl.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was either you're a girly girl who's drop dead gorgeous and people love you, but you just have no sense and no aspiration in life, or you're someone who's really confident and you're killing it in business, but oh my God, everybody just finds you annoying. So everyone is just like, I can't stand this person. I was like, I don't want to choose. I want to be the benefits of both. And that's what I decided to share on the Fem Guide, was the combination between ambition and femininity.
I love that, honestly, because that is right up my alley, because I'm someone who genuinely believes that femininity is really important, but I never had that space to kind of express it, I guess, from like the way I grew up. And I'm always someone that has believed that the way you grow up, or like your parents, kind of shape how you view certain things on life. How do you feel like growing up, like your upbringing affected how you viewed from femininity?
First of all, that's an amazing question. No one's ever asked me that question before. And I'm sad because I have so much to share on this. Like, it had such a massive impact that I didn't even realize. So I come from a Nigerian background, but there's two sides of me. Hey, amo Yoruba le mio.
Hey, Mina. I love it. So we're both Yoruba. Wow, that's lit.
We're both Yoruba. Listen, we need to meet up and just go out in public and speak Yoruba to each other, and no one will understand. That's my fantasy. So just like you, I have this Nigerian side to myself, right? And my parents are extremely strict, which a lot of West Africans can relate to. Like, you know, we watch The World's Strictest Parents and we're like, damn, you got that easy. I wish I was in that situation. And then I have the other side to me, which was me growing up in Ireland. I was at some points the only Black girl in my school. So I had this culture of like classical music and what people would stereotype as like white things, you know. So I didn't like Afrobeats at the time. I just didn't have many people of color friends because there wasn't that many around. So I was being pulled in both directions, right? So the kind of Irish side of me when it came to femininity was about like, oh, like, you know, it's important for you to be attractive and it's important for you to be confident. But on the other side of me that was pulling me was my Black side, which always felt like an outsider in this space. So I was like, maybe this doesn't belong to me. But then also my African side was the goal for life is you go to school, you either become a doctor, a lawyer, accountant, or failure. And then you get a husband. And as long as you get a good degree, you're going to get a husband. But please understand that up until the age of 21, you should never date. But once you pass 21, the next year you should have a husband. Like, how does that work, right? And so this had an impact on me where in growing up, I didn't have a concept of femininity. What's now? What's that? You know, so for me, what started to happen was I was heading down the path my parents wanted me to go down. And I was like, okay, I can achieve everything in life as long as I become a doctor. And you know what was really tough back then? Is that people would say, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my response was, I am going to be a doctor. Not that I want to be a doctor, but I was going to be a doctor because I felt like I didn't have any other choice. But I don't know if you've seen me, but listen, I went to study podiatry, which obviously is the sexiest job in the world. It's all about scraping people's feet and dealing with calluses and ulcers. This girl's bougie who wasn't working out, you know, and I felt trapped. And I was like, I don't like this. And I just didn't feel passion. And one day I started, you know, paying more attention because everyone was like, Kat, your makeup is nice, start a YouTube channel. And so I was like, okay, let me buy this camera in secret. And I bought this camera and I started making these secret videos in my bedroom. Guys, no, I don't want you to, not those kind of videos, like makeup videos. So I started making these makeup videos. And what intrigued me was learning about filmmaking and learning about like how to use a camera. Just like you're so well in depth in your knowledge of podcasting. I was looking at your Instagram and I was looking at like the posts and you were sharing like how to solo podcasts. It obviously takes work to achieve that, but you're able to share really good information because you're passionate about what you do. And so what I started to happen to me was I couldn't wait to go to sleep, to wake up, just to start learning filmmaking again. I was like, wait a minute. I think this is that passion thing people are talking about. And so I made a really tough decision. I decided, and this was really hard, I decided that I was going to switch my degree. And so I was going to study film. So to any person with strict parents in their life, you already know that the first thing you're saying is, so where am I going to live when I'm homeless? And I knew that something bad was going to happen. So I went to my university, and this is when I was using my feminine side, right? And because my strong African independent woman side says, you just have to deal with it. This is the way life is. But my Western Irish side that has privilege, that says I can achieve anything I want in the world, says, this is not okay. You deserve what you want. Go to your university and tell them that you're struggling. And so I did. And I reached out to them and I was like, I need emotional support. Oh, I'm getting emotional because I'm going to go through a really tough time now. And I think my parents are going to disown me. And so they gave me counseling, and the counseling really prepared me for what was going to happen when I told my parents I switched my degree. So I ended up telling my parents and they laughed in my face. Then when they realized it was true, my mom started crying. They told me that I'd ruined my life, that I was never going to be successful. They showed me the statistics of successful Black women in Hollywood, which, by the way, successful Black female directors in Hollywood is 1%. So it was really like, do you really think you could be part of the 1%? My African upbringing is like, I don't think I could have done one. I think I need to just stick with the guaranteed success of being a doctor. But my like privileged side, I'm so glad I had the upbringing I did, because it was a mix of both, said, I am going to add to that 1%. I'm going to make it 2%, you know? And so I ended up switching my degree. And what happened is my parents did disown me. Like, they actually did. And it was a really, really tough time. But at that point, I said F you to my family. And that was the only thing I had growing up, because I went to 12 different schools. I moved around. But when I said F you to the thing that was most important to me in life, that's when my life changed, honestly. Because at that point, I'd given up everything I knew. And so now it's like, I get to live life the way I want. And I had this vision of this ambitious, successful, but also feminine version that my family told me wasn't possible. And that's what I strived to achieve.
Wow, no, honestly, that is so amazing, because I can completely relate with the kind of things you said about your upbringing, the fact that your parents had this plan in their head of what they wanted you to become. And what's crazy about all these plans and aspirations, because my parents are very big on education and, you know, going after your goals and, you know, being someone in life, is that despite doing all of this, like I've done the education, I'm working out my dreams, it's not enough because I don't have a man by my side, because I'm like, and I just always think to myself, when I say a man by my side, I was in like, I'm not married, like I'm not respected. Even if I might be dating someone, I might, you know, have a long-term relationship, I might be serious, it's not okay until there's a ring on your finger and you're married. You're not, your value, you don't have value as a woman. You're not important to them. And I just find it so fascinating and baffling. Like, I was having a conversation with my mom the other day. She's talking about, what's going on? What are the prospects? What is happening? You know, like I'm 26 now. Like, you're 26 now. So what's like, what where is the progress? Like, you're supposed to be getting married soon. And I'm like, Mom, have you ever asked me what I'm thinking? What is my mental health like? What is my emotional health like? You've never asked me those questions, because when you ask me things like, oh, like, when are you gonna get married, or what are the prospects, it just makes me feel like you don't really care about me as a person. You care about me as the role that you feel like I should fulfill, which is the wife. And I just find it honestly so crazy how African parents can think, honestly. As you said, like, ambition as a woman is difficult, because society, you know, on one side, society thinks the ambitious woman is a bitch. It comes across as aggressive, and that there can never be any feminine traits in a woman who goes after her goals. And the feminine woman is seen as someone as a doormat, and someone who just accepts life and just lets a man take the lead and doesn't really go after, and is passive, or doesn't go after what she wants. But that strong combination, that strong bond of the ambitious and the femininity is something that not a lot of people talk about, and it's honestly such a unique perspective. So I really do appreciate what you're doing. And I actually did want to ask you, like, why do you feel like it's important for women to use that feminine energy in their personal development journey?
Oh my gosh, baby, you're just killing me with these questions. And like, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing your experience too, because I know when I was going through that tough moment, a lot of people can relate to this. You feel like you're the only person. You feel like this is just happening to me. And the truth is that it is happening across cultures, across ages, across races. So I'm so glad that you shared that. To speak to your question on why it's important to combine femininity and ambition, if we even just look at the cultural aspects, when you were sharing about, you know, how your mother would be like, so when are you having your husband and blah, blah, blah. Like, I had to have conversations with my family to be like, don't even bring that one close to me, okay? Because things will happen when they're going to happen. But if I didn't go through that transition with my parents, I definitely would have been in a space where they'd be pressuring me and all of those things. It's funny, though, how they tell us, okay, by this age, you must be married. But then they also tell us that getting our degree is what's going to get us married. And in actuality, when we look at attraction, a man doesn't say, oh, she has a PhD. That makes her so attractive. No, guys don't think like that. What makes us attractive? what makes us alluring, especially when we're dealing with attracting a masculine man, which I found that most girls like us want, is our femininity, is our ability to be inspiration, is the time that we create for ourselves, is how we build this amazing, beautiful life that someone wants to be a part of. But they don't teach us that growing up. And so why I think the work that I do on coaching women specifically who are ambitious is important is because when you're able to tap into your feminine energy, whether it is in work, in your business, or in your love life, you're able to attract so much more. You see, when you're in that masculine space, which is the ambitious side, you're in go, 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 work, work, work. What ends up happening, especially for us women, you become tired. You can become negative, pessimistic. You don't have time for yourself.
Yeah.
So you're killing it in your business or your career and you have all of these accolades. But then, and this is I see literally happen to the women I'm working with, whether they're earning 5 figures a year or 6 figures a year, is that when they exit the workplace or they exit their business and it now comes for the social aspect or the love life, they're in a situation where they're not able to attract a masculine man who is a protector or who is a provider. Yeah. What they're attracting is men who love their success and all of that and put their success on the pedestal. Now, that might sound fine, but what we see is that men who do that are often submissive men or more feminine men. Yeah. And that's fine if that's what you want. But I found that for most women, particularly, like I said, women who have the same kind of background as us, that's not what we want. We want that masculine man. Yeah. And that masculine man, he's not valuing all your masculine traits. He is desiring, he's seeking out your feminine traits. And that's on the left side. But let's talk about the business or the career side. Yeah. For example, networking is really important. One of the things that you're able to do when you tap into your feminine energy is you position yourself in a place to attract. So one of the things I do in, for example, my confidence coaching is I show women how to work on themselves so that no matter what room they step in, they know they're going to have amazing impressions on people. People who they want to aspire to be like or they want to connect to are saying to them, hey, how can I spend more time with you? How can I get to know you, right? One time I watched a film and I saw this amazing actress and I used my feminine energy to connect with her. And she was like, hey, can we spend time together? I never thought that I'd get to a place through my feminine energy where I'd watch an actress in a film and have her saying to me, can we be friends? So our feminine energy is incredibly potent and strong when we learn how to use it the right way. And that's why the combination of both is important.
Here's the thing. I feel like a lot of what we were taught younger as being important, so important to men, is not really what they see as important. And I feel like nowadays, being a feminine woman and believing in hypergamy is seen as negative and seen as something that takes us backwards. But why do you feel like it's seen as such a negative thing? And what are your thoughts on this?
You know what? I think the reason why people can have such an adverse reaction to femininity or hypergamy, by the way, the two are separate, but we often combine them together, is honestly, if we go back in history and we look at the second women's rights movement, right? The goal for women was, so we look at World War I and World War II. It was really the first time that women were entering the workplace because the men had gone to fight. So women had to make an income. So for the first time, women were earning their own money and they were fighting for their rights, which I think is so good because you and I wouldn't be able to do what we were doing today if that didn't happen. Now, if you and I, for example, were doing this awesome podcast together and I was speaking Spanish and you were speaking Swahili, there's no way that this would work out, right? In order for us to have a successful podcast, we need to speak the same language. So at the time, the same thing applied in the workplace. In order for women to be taken seriously and to be respected in the workplace, they had to speak the language that was spoken. And because prior to that, women were not in the workplace, it was a masculine language. So even if you study fashion at the time, you see women's fashion change. This is when you see Chanel coming out with those gorgeous Chanel suits, right? So fashion literally started to change, but it wasn't just on the outside, it was on the inside. Behavior began to change. Now we fast forward to, for those of you who've watched Mad Men, you can literally see this begin to happen in Mad Men. When after the movement started to happen, what started to change is that women began to get jobs in the workplace that were also more creative. And if we look at right now, where we are right now, I think, don't quote me, but the statistics show that the number one rising group of entrepreneurship right now is Black women. Yeah. So we're in a place where our choices are a lot more right now because we actually had choice. Back then, they didn't have choice. And so the language that's being spoken, for example, in my business, I don't have to perform in a masculine way for anyone because I'm the boss, you know? And even in my other business where my business partner is a male, he allows me to thrive in my feminine energy. So the landscape is changing. The difference is, though, and Lou, I want to ask you this. If you had a daughter, and because I can tell that you're someone who wants to see your daughter achieve things in life. If you knew a formula for success and happiness, would you pass that down to your daughter?
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely, right? Because you're a decent human being. So if we take that same principle, what did the generation who was coming up pre-women's right movement and during the women's right movement learned? They learned that in order for their daughters to live a good life, they had to adopt the masculine things. So they had to adopt the masculine style of behavior. They had to fight to not be, to be taken equally and be 50-50. So what happens is they pass that down to the next generation. And this is how culture is formed. So they're passing that down to their sons and their daughters. So we're in a place right now where a certain part of society, they see femininity and hypergamy as regressive, as taking us back to the 50s and the 60s as a negative thing. Simply a big reason being because that was the mentality that was passed down to them. But one of the things I will point out, and this is what I learned when I studied my degree, because I focused a lot on femininity and gender and race and identity. When we studied the women's right movement, I was shocked to learn that actually for Black women in those times, staying at home and being a housewife was an act of rebellion. That was feminism, because they always had to work. So feminism is also for a certain kind of people as well, you know? And when it comes to the hypergamy piece, I think we're just simply living in a culture these days. But this topic, hypergamy, is so big and it can get people really riled up. And here's how I view it.
Yeah.
I don't think hypergamy is wrong. In fact, I'm an advocate for hypergamy, but I'm also an advocate for people who don't go for hypergamy, because simply as a human, I believe that what we should be trying to do in life is, instead of trying to change people and place our mindset on them, to find the person with the same values and the same beliefs as us. To me, that's the ultimate goal. So if you're pro hypergamy, awesome. If you're anti hypergamy, okay. What I don't do is I don't get really deep into like trying to change people's mind or being volatile. If people disagree on my views, that's completely fine. But I think that's my feminine side. My feminine side is like, look, my life is great. I don't need you to stress me out. I'm not going to try and stress you out. So you do you, and I'm going to do me. Yeah.
And just as you were talking about hypergamy, I was just thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to say this man's name. You probably know about him already. Everyone knows about him. Kevin Samuels, High Valley Man. Literally, sorry, that's my terrible American accent. But this man literally has taken over the internet. And I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on here? And I've watched some of his videos, and I do find I find his outlook interesting, and the kind of things he says is interesting. Especially when he talks to women. But what I don't like is the way he addresses women, and he's just so rude towards women. I just wanted to know, because he talks a lot about the high value man and how these men want this and these men want that. What are your thoughts on high value men? And actually, in that, what are your thoughts on what a high value woman should be? Because I feel like if there's any discussions to be had here, it would be on what
Yeah.
a high value woman is, or what that mentality is, and how can we actually display that in our day to day.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good topic. And wow, yeah, the landscape around dating and relationships is, it's like a roller coaster. Like, there's so much going on right now.
Yeah.
And when it comes to this high value concept, and here's my fundamental belief, is it's subjective. And I know there's people who will argue that it is objective. But even if we look at love languages, right? Love languages, acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, and gift receiving. A lot of the ideas around what's a high value man is targeted towards people whose love language for women is gift receiving. But what I've learned through my coaching, which ties in the finances part, what I've learned through my coaching is that not every woman's love language is gift receiving. I mean, it's definitely mine, but it's not everybody's. Some women, their love language, if they look at the top 3, is going to be quality time, it's going to be physical touch, and it might be words of affirmation. In which case, having a man who earns a certain amount of money a year is not going to be as important, because it's going to take him a lot of time and a lot of working to achieve that money, and her love language is quality time. Right? So to her, just because a guy earns 6 figures doesn't make him high value. Culture also has to do a part. Your location has to do a part. A lot of the advice that we see online, I realize it's very American. So a lot of the times when I watch some of these videos and they're saying Black women are like this and Black women like this, I'm like, what is that happening? And then I coach American clients, and I'm like, oh, I can see some of the things that are happening. Like, even topics, like, people like to sometimes will ask me about like Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B. And I'm like, I could sit next to Megan Thee Stallion on the train and I would have no idea. I'm talking about Meghan Markle this week. That's what I'm interested in, right? So even your culture and your interest has to play a part in these conversations. Fundamentally, if we focus specifically on what's high value, I think high value, really, if we look at it from a man's side, it's going to be, first of all, someone who is able to love you the way that you want to be loved. It's someone who is going to have certain traits. For example, someone who is faithful, someone who is honest. If you're a woman who's feminine, then it's going to be someone who is masculine. But by the way, if you're a woman who leads with her masculine energy, then a man who leads with his feminine energy is going to be high value to you. So do you see why I say it's so subjective? So I don't use the term high value man or high value woman because it's too broad. But I actually have a course called the High Value Mentality. And so what I actually teach on that course is targeted at women. And I say, hey, women, if you're someone who wants to attract a masculine man, and if you're someone who wants to live a life of luxury, or you're attracted to men who are providers or successful, then what makes you high value? Number one, your femininity is extremely important, because that is the yin to his yang. The second thing is your confidence. The third thing is, look, we can't shy away from beauty. Beauty has a part to play in this. But again, beauty changes over time. Marilyn Monroe, by today's standard, would not fit the ideal of beauty. She'd be told, I mean, can you imagine it? If we put Marilyn Monroe wouldn't be able to walk on the runway in New York Fashion Week. So beauty changes over time. To me, she's freaking gorgeous, you know? So then another part to play in it is your ability to be warm, your ability to be not volatile, not aggressive, receptive. Like there's so many different aspects that's involved in being high value. But one thing that people tend to shy away from or not talk about is also your perception and your standards of yourself. Because when you're high value, you have high expectations of others, but you also meet those expectations yourself. So if you're a business owner, if you're a high value dentist, you're not a dentist that just because someone can afford you, they get access to you. There's going to be other parameters they have to meet in order to book a session with you. They want to get their teeth done. There's not an appointment available tomorrow. You have to book in advance. That's a high value dentist. But at the same time, you go to that dentist because they provide the right service. They provide a high quality service. So it's on both sides.
I feel like we talked a lot about femininity and ambition and being, as you just said, having that high value mentality. And because this podcast is a podcast that we really like to give like actionable steps and tips and tricks to people, what would you say are some steps women can start taking today to tap into their femininity and to kind of learn how to balance that ambitious side with their femininity?
I love that question. So self-awareness is key when it comes to tapping into your femininity. People love to jump straight into, okay, girl, we need a new wig, we need to get our nails done, etc., etc. And I actually gave an example on my Instagram story yesterday of someone who was giving advice on femininity. And everyone in the comments on TikTok was like, yes, this person's feminine. And to be honest, their advice was good. But the irony was they were not embodying femininity themselves because they were shouting, they were like screaming, they were swearing, they were doing all of these things. Now, why does that happen?
Wow.
Because someone thinks, oh, I want to work on my femininity. I'm just going to go to the salon, get a wax, get all of these things. However, since we're talking about high value, a high value man will see you looking feminine and you open your mouth and that image is going to fall away straight away. So what actually helps you become authentically feminine, which is what I focus on the Fem Guide, is number one, you need to ask yourself, where am I currently going wrong? Like, where am I overly masculine? So this means making a list. Do you know what kind of frustrates me, Lou? Is that people have all these big goals and these big aspirations. I want to achieve this. I want to do that. And you tell them to make a list and write something down. And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. And then they don't do it. And they're just going to sit and they're going to complain. Okay, so if you don't want to fall in this category, you have to actually do the work. So you should make a list of all your traits that you can see within yourself, the good and the bad. I want you to circle what you see as masculine and circle what you see as feminine. Now you need to ask yourself, where do those masculine traits help you? And then where do those masculine traits pull you back? And wherever those masculine traits are pulling you back, you need to ask yourself, or you can just come to me, but you can ask yourself, what action can I take to start to work on this? So let's say, for example, a typical one that I see for women is they don't have any time for themselves. So this is usually because either they're super successful and they're in go, go, go mode, or maybe they're a mother and the kids are just a big part of their life. Yeah. Well, even the mothers that I coach, one of the things I teach them is the importance of making time for themselves. So you need to find time, minimum of 1 hour every day that's just focused on you and your internal. Yeah. That could look like meditation. That could look like swimming. For me, it's dancing. In the last 3 months, there has not been one day that I didn't dance. I love it. Right? But when you dance, you start to feel in tune with your body. You start to feel in tune with your energy, right? Before we had this podcast, I danced, right? I had a scenario today where someone in my company just didn't do something right. And I was very frustrated because I'm like, my employees need to do the right things. And the guy who I'm currently speaking to, he wanted to have a phone call with me. And here's the feminine thing that you can do. Take an assessment of how you're feeling inside. And how I was feeling inside, I'm like, man, I'm feeling very masculine, which is what I need for my business to communicate. But I'm also angry and I'm also frustrated. So it's not going to be good for me to pick up the phone and just have this bad energy. So what I did was I went straight to YouTube and I started listening to some affirmations around happiness, and I started playing Justin Bieber. I just started dancing, and immediately my energy changed. And so when he picked up the phone, when he said, "Hey, Kat," instead of me being like, "Hey, how are you?" I was like, "Hey, I'm so glad I can finally get to hear your voice today." Completely different. He was like, "Oh, baby." So that self-awareness is so good for a feminine energy, but you can't do that if you do not set time for yourself every single day for that to happen. The third thing, I guess that was kind of two things. The third thing that you can do is I want you to encourage others to be more feminine. Now, this is advice that I haven't really heard out here before, and here's why it's beneficial. When you make room for femininity, you encourage femininity within yourself. So let's say you're having a day at work, right? And you just notice that your colleague is feeling really frustrated. Instead of giving her a pat on the back and be like, "Girl, suck it up. We just need to get this project done," be like, "I can tell that you're really frustrated. Is everything okay?" They're most likely going to be like, "Yeah, everything's fine. I'm just annoyed." Be like, "Don't worry, babe. When we have lunch, we'll talk about it." And when you have lunch, just listen and understand and sympathize with them and just be present. What you will find, and it happens so subconsciously, is that your feminine energy has just increased because you're receptive of that feminine energy. There's something called spontaneous state transference, which means that people's state can transfer to us. So if you notice, when you're around Nigerians, if you're Nigerian, all of a sudden that you start speaking like this and you don't even know what's happening, right? If you're around people who are very aggressive or who swear a lot and who are masculine, then before you know it, soon you start swearing without even realizing. Well, let's use that to our advantage. Surround yourself with feminine energy, and if it's not around you, then encourage that feminine energy.
I love those tips. One thing I wanted to actually ask you is, what is one piece of advice you'd give to an 18-year-old Kat? So if you think back to how you were at 18 and how much you've progressed over like the years, what advice would you say to yourself?
Oh, that's a good one. You should just be a professional question asker.
Thank you.
It's such a good skill. Okay, so 18-year-old Kat. Wow. Okay, so I'm trying to think of where I was in the world. So I was in university. I hadn't even started my business. Oh my gosh, wow, that's a completely different person. Okay, so I hadn't even started my business yet. I was in the place of making that transition of my degree. So I was studying podiatry at the time. Oh, man, that was a tough time. So I think the one piece of advice I'd give to that version of myself, knowing what I know now, is to not shy away from receiving and asking for help. Because my masculine energy was still leading at this point, and so was my independent, strong African woman side. So I was going through a lot, and it varied from me struggling at university to get good grades, to having emotional issues because I was in a very toxic situation with my family, mentality-wise. And I was of the belief that if I share any of what's going on in my life, of what makes me stress out, what makes me cry, what makes me upset, then I'm less of an amazing person, that I'm weak, that I now am not worthy of all these opinions that people have of me, that I'm so confident and charismatic. If I share that, then that's a weakness. And looking back on what I know now, babe, the moment I have a little bit of, I don't like something, or I'm questioning this, I tell the people around me. Because what I found is that when you have people around you who love you, and I did at the time, who are your friends, they want to support you, they want to help you. And think of it, if you had a friend right now, and let's say you were really talented in an area, and they came to you and they needed advice, how happy and excited would you be to give them advice in that area? We love ourselves. We love to help people. So how many times did I sit there to myself saying, oh, I'm not going to talk about the fact that I'm struggling with this because it's going to ruin my image. If I'd changed that, the things I've achieved today would have happened so much more quickly. So I definitely tell 18-year-old Kat, baby, you need to start talking to people. You need to get support, and you need to stop taking pride in struggle. Take pride in being able. It's powerful to be served, by the way. This is one of my fundamental beliefs. It is powerful when people serve you. It's weak when you say, I don't need anybody. I could do it all by myself. It's also weak when you say, oh, I can't do anything. I need everybody to do it for me. But it's powerful when you understand that you can do it for yourself, but you choose to let people do it for you.
That's so true. I can completely relate with what you said. The feeling that you want to be independent, you want to do everything by yourself, and you don't want to seek help because, like, seeking help is seen as a weakness, and you shouldn't really show people your struggles and really have people know what you're feeling inside. But as you said, there's beauty and there's power and there's strength in actually seeking support when you need it. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I also like to ask people, which area of growth do they feel like they're currently working on? So, like, is there any area that you feel like you're struggling with that you're currently trying to improve on?
Yeah, definitely. I'm someone who, by the way, I do not shy away from telling people how I'm receiving help in my life. It's part of my femininity. It's also to let people who see me and they see my success and what I'm achieving understand that it's continual growth, and that we all have things that we're working on. So right now, girl, let me tell you, let me list all my coaches who are supporting me in life right now. I have a millionaire mindset coach who coaches millionaires. And what she's doing with me is she's helping me adopt a very prosperous and healthy mentality when it comes to finances, because I definitely did not have that around me growing up. So I don't really have direct friends at the time or family who I could look to for advice. So I had a lot of negative beliefs when it came to being rich or having money and how to spend your money. So I'm working on that. I have a imposter syndrome coach, because despite the fact that I'm so great at teaching people how to become more confident, when it comes to like my business, sometimes I still get that. We all do, by the way. J.K. Rowling, all of these people, they all have imposter syndrome. So I have a coach who I work with on that. I have 2 speaking coaches because I love my voice. I love my voice, but I want to give a TED Talk one day. I want my voice to be a signature. I want when people hear my voice, they know who's speaking, not just because they know femininity, but because they know me. And a big part of everything I do, from coaching to how I date to interactions I have with people, my voice plays a massive part in that. So I have 2 speaking coaches. I also have a sales coach. He's amazing. And so he's helping me. I hit 6 figures before the first year of my business. And that's not enough for me, because I'm like, the world is our oyster. We can achieve everything we want. So he's helping me. He's helping me get better at like making more sales, and just 7 figures is my goal for the meantime. So he's helping me with that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I honestly wish we had more time, but I know you're probably very busy, and I really honestly enjoyed our time together. But before you go, is there one thing you want people to take away from this episode?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I want people to take away is the following. It's very easy to hear what Lou and I have spoken about and say, I relate, or I really feel that, or that's so true. What a lot of people do is they're information hoarders. And this is why so many people don't achieve the things that they want in life.
Preach.
They take in the information, right? They're like, oh, you're so right. And then they go back to their normal lives. So what I want you to do is I want you to take just one lesson, one little bit of information that you heard from today's podcast and ask yourself, how am I going to apply this to my life? And after you find that, ask yourself the next question. What's the first small step I need to take to get started? So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I really need to improve on my femininity, instead of just having that hang around in your head for the next week, ask yourself, how can I apply the tips on femininity, for example, asking for help, to my life? And you go and you find someone to ask for help on femininity. And the action step is, okay, after I watch this YouTube channel, I go through this Instagram, I'm going to check out their online course, I'm going to check out their coaching, I'm going to go download that free book that they have to offer. Then the next thing is, Lou's podcast is amazing. So much advice is offered in your podcast, Lou. So if you're someone who listens to podcasts on a regular, like me, I listen to one podcast a day. Imagine what your life would look like if you took just one piece of information every single day from the podcast and you put it into action. Yeah. You will be sitting here being interviewed because you will be unstoppable, right? So that's what I want you to take away. Go put in the action.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It really has. If the audience want to connect with you and get to know more about your journey and the work you do, how can they do that?
Yeah, so the easiest way and the most fun way is to connect with me on Instagram at The Fem Guide. That's TheFemmeGuide, The Fem Guide. And on Instagram, I share so much advice every single day. I share memes. It's all about education, entertainment, and inspiration. So you will be spoiled for knowledge. And then every resource that I have that's like the most beneficial for you is always in a link in my Instagram bio. So for example, I have a course, like I have hundreds of testimonials. So if you want to see if this stuff works, I literally have nearly one testimonial for every single day of the year. That's how much femininity can change your life. I have The Art of Confidence, which is my most viral course. And that is like a game changer. And so that's how you can make like a small investment in yourself and get massive results. And then of course I have coaching, but always the best place for you to start if you're not ready to or able yet to make a bigger financial investment is with the online courses. They're affordable. There's payment plans as well. And they're in the link in my Instagram bio.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode, Kat. And thank you guys for listening to this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts. You can email me at levelupwithlu@gmail.com. Just feel free to say hi. Let me know what you thought about the episode. And I will catch you guys on the next episode. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.